The Switch era has been an undeniable success for Nintendo. A huge bounce back from the ailing Wii U days. Nintendo moved over 150 million consoles and over 1.3 billion games. But I am not a Nintendo shareholder. I don't particularly care how much money the Switch made. I want to know how good the 8 years of the Switch was for the games released during that period. Which franchises thrived, which treaded water, which would we have liked to see more from, which had some good ideas but were technical disasters. Let's dive into the Switch era on a creative level and see how Nintendo and beyond performed. So this is going to be a series of videos broken into categories and series. As the title would suggest, this one is about Mario. We'll also cover Zelda, Pokemon, Mario spin-offs, the broader Nintendo portfolio, and then third parties and indies together. The messiest of those will be Nintendo's broader portfolio, because it's going to cover a lot of varied franchises probably pretty quickly, but it would be impossible to do all of that stuff individually. Maybe not impossible, it would just take a very long time. So sorry to the folks that would like a standalone Xenoblade video, maybe someday. And also the people who would like me to talk for 20 minutes about ARMS or Sushi Striker's Way of the Sushido. We'll give each category a letter grade based solely on how good I feel the games were. We don't care one iota how well they sold. In the broader portfolio video, we'll also give the individual series a letter grade, because we don't want to leave them out too badly. This video focuses solely on the core Mario platforming games. So any game where the focus was traditional 2D or 3D Mario platforming counts. All the sports and kart racers and RPGs go in the spin-off video. So, let's go. There is no better place to start than Super Mario Odyssey. There are two broad categories that 3D Mario slot into. There are open, sandbox games like Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine that focus more on exploration and adventure. Then there's more linear level-based games like Mario Galaxy and Mario 3D World that focus more on pure platforming and tighter level design. By the time Mario Odyssey came out in 2017, we hadn't seen a more sandbox-focused Mario game in over 15 years. That's a real long time without a sense of adventure in a Mario game. For as good as 3D World and particularly Galaxy were, using those sweet, beautiful Mario movement mechanics in a larger space was missed. Mario Odyssey landed as a breath of fresh air. The game had beautiful open spaces stuffed with little secrets everywhere that were a delight to move around. While the sheer number of collectible moons in the game bordered on ridiculous, it meant that there was always a little dopamine hit for rounding a hidden corner or completing a platforming challenge. It also meant that there was a pretty straightforward critical path for the kiddos, and then a ton more below that for the sickos, making the game nice and accessible without losing its depth. The hat transformation mechanic is such a fun twist on traditional Mario power-ups, and added such an unexpected sense of whimsy to every single level. That little spark of joy every time you found a new thing your hat could possess really captured the spirit of Nintendo's games at their most unabashedly creative. Even the ones that weren't really that fun to use were still silly enough to find some fun in. The level design goes back to a feeling I've been having more and more in recent years. Smaller and more dense trumps bigger and more sparse every time. The levels are pretty big, but not unimaginably so. But they're stuffed with little delights everywhere. Scale for scale's sake just isn't impressive anymore. Levels like these stand out for all the little experiences you have in them. Every time you find a sphinx at the bottom of a lake or you kick a bunch of cans in the middle of a food kingdom sticks out a lot more than some extra empty space. In an era where every single big game franchise takes 5 to 10 years between entries, focusing on smaller might be for the better these days. Mario Odyssey set the perfect tone for the Switch's launch year. Nintendo is back, and it's firing on all cylinders again. If New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is the first Super Mario Bros. Game you play, you'll probably have a pretty good time with it. It's well made, looks pretty good, has good level design, a perfectly competent game in every single regard. It just feels dated. After all of the new Super Mario Bros. Games, not to mention the original 2D games from the 80s and 90s, it reaches a point where you feel like you've seen it all before. There's just not enough truly new from game to game to make them feel like fresh, novel experiences. And there can be comfort in that, because it's a very good video game. Any other game that looks that good, plays that tightly, and has that good level design would get universal praise. But because this is the fourth in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, it just felt like it was desperately in need of reinvention, and this Switch port did not reinvent it in any meaningful way whatsoever. It's kind of a bummer when you saw what they added to Bowser's Fury, a really cool individual mode that actually spices things up and brought a new take on some of the mechanics of Super Mario 3D World. And then they put this one out, and it was basically the same game. I guess this one did come before Mario 3D World, but you know what I mean. There was that one character everybody got really horny for, and that wasn't even in the game. People just got inspired by an idea in the game. But it really does have to be said, it's a good game. It's just not interesting. Super Mario Maker 2 frustrates me a little bit, because I think a decision to focus more on bolstering the online options in response to feedback at launch ultimately hindered the game in the long run. Instead of the game having a steadier release of new content immediately after launch, it had those online modes that I don't think many people even use that much instead. New items and enemies came after that, including the Super Ball from Mario Land, Link, the Frog Suit, the Super Mario Bros. 2 Mushroom, and all of those rocked and had a ton of fun use cases, but it feels like the momentum stalled, and the updates stopping within a year was a real disappointment. This is the sort of game that you'd hope to have seen a real long tail of small updates rather than a couple of big ones only to cut bait. As it was though, Super Mario Maker 2 was a worthy successor to the original. The lack of a gamepad when creating on the TV was missed, but the game still felt intuitive enough. Seeing Super Mario 3D World translated into 2D was such a novel idea, and it's a shame that ended up being the only new game style. The new desert and ice themes helped add variety, and it was a ton of fun to just have another era of people unleashing their monstrosities onto the world. Popular levels were still too filled with music levels and auto levels, but people still found seemingly endless creative uses for the tools involved. I hope Mario Maker doesn't end with this game. It'd be perfect for the rumored Switch 2's mouse functionality. Worth noting, this is being recorded before the Switch 2 Direct. And in time, it will follow the path of its Wii U brother. Eventually, the Mario Maker 2 servers will be shut off, and it will be a travesty if there's not at least a replacement available to play. Oh, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. What more you could have been. In some ways, the leak set this thing up to fail, because it seemed like it would include Mario Galaxy 2, and then it didn't. It had 3 games, Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. It's nice to have those games playable in some form on Switch, and it was nice to have widescreen and HD versions of both Mario Sunshine and Mario Galaxy. It's better to have those things than not have them, because now we don't have them. Nintendo took it off sale after 6 months. You can't buy it digitally, and you'll have to track it down on the secondary market or hunt down an unsold copy if you want it physical. For as much as you can have qualms about the effort that went into the overall presentation of this package, or how the games could be generously described as enhanced ports, taking them off sale so fast is unforgivable. If there's one thing I hope Nintendo firmly leave behind in the Switch 2 era, it's that bullshit. The games are good though, other than Sunshine. That is good, and then also a deeply evil game designed to torture people. Super Mario Bros. 35 is a tragedy. It is an awesome game, tremendous fun to play, hilarious to watch so many people die to the first Goomba over and over again in Super Mario Bros. Hilarious to watch people not understand the physics of the original Super Mario Bros. At all and fall into pit after pit. Just so much fun to take a burgeoning new genre like the Battle Royale and apply it to something as timeless as Mario. Of course, not being the first to do so, given a fan game existed first. And then they turned it off. That stinks so bad. Why did they do that? It's one of the most annoying things they've done in the Switch era. Mario 35 was awesome, but all the footage you're going to see here is me messing with the menus. That's all you can do with the game now. You can still open it, you can still mess with the menus, you can't even use the practice mode, they turned that off too. They could have easily extended the life of this game with new modes and items, expanded it to Mario 3 and Mario World levels. It could have lived for years and years, but they shut it down after 6 months. I'm so mad they did that. It sucks. It's a tragedy. Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury is a really neat package. They probably didn't even need to add something like Bowser's Fury to 3D World to make it worthwhile to revisit in its own right, but I'm really glad they did. Mario 3D World is a fantastic game full of creativity. The game introduces ideas, iterates on them, and throws them away at a ridiculous pace, always moving on to a fresh new idea. It looks a little better, and it moves a little faster than its Wii U brother. It's just a better, more pleasant way to play an already fantastic game. It's worth going back to if you missed it on Wii U. And then there's Bowser's Fury, which is a really interesting experiment with what not quite open world Mario would be, but certainly if you took the ideas of linear Mario levels and put them in a more open space. I'm not sure it's what I want the next Mario game to be, but I certainly want Nintendo to revisit the idea at some point. The only down point being the persistent boss threat, which is cool the first couple times, but then it becomes kinda tiresome. Earlier I talked about the two versions of 3D Mario, the sandbox Mario and the linear level design Mario. This tries to merge the two in a compelling way. Did it get all the way there? Kind of? I don't know. There are some strange quirks in there, like the lack of a long jump, which feels very strange in 3D Mario, and the companion character idea feels a little underdeveloped, but there's definitely something there to explore deeper in the future. Go back and listen to everything I said about New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. I still can't believe that's the name of that game. Super Mario Wonder feels like a direct response to all those criticisms. It took all the bland, tired ideas of the new Soup games and didn't throw it out entirely, but re-examined it. Boring visuals? What if the game was much more expressive and eye-catching? Tired mechanics? What if every single level had a cool, unique mechanic in it? Too many of the same old Mario enemies? What if there's a bunch of new weird freaks? It puts a fresh coat of paint and a bunch of new ideas into a tired formula, and what do you know? It turns out there's a bunch of juice left in that formula. It was an honest question in my mind heading into this game. What does a 2D Mario game look like in a post-Mario Maker world? Not to discredit Nintendo's level designers, but they turned a really solid toolset over to the world, and people made countless really cool, interesting, creative levels that pushed those tools to the very limit. If they really did just produce another game in the new Super Mario Bros. Style, it's hard to imagine how it would have lived up to the user-generated stuff. The solution to that was to get wildly creative. The Wonder Flowers offer a brilliant hook to every level, something to look forward to in the middle of each level because you knew there'd be something not only that you didn't expect, but sometimes actively subverting what the game even is. Sometimes it's just a Goomba stealth game. Not only that, but the badges reinvent how you approach gameplay. I kinda wish there was more levels actively catered to each badge given how much fun they are to use and mess with. Either the Wonder levels or the badges could have been a major hook of a new 2D Mario game. Getting both of them in one game puts it over the top. Even the talking flowers were only a little annoying. Mario Wonder was a real rebound for 2D Mario after a stagnant era. It's neat that both Mario Odyssey and Mario Wonder share a common thread. Both are built around transformations that completely change the gameplay in fun and unexpected ways. Both also reinvigorated their respective genres. Odyssey bringing a sense of adventure back to 3D Mario, and Wonder bringing that core Nintendo creativity back to 2D Mario. They stand as pillars of the Switch's library and strong representations of Mario in the Switch era. The rest of the Mario run on Switch is good if spotty. 3D World and Bowser's Fury over-delivered on a Wii U port. 3D All-Stars is better to exist than not. Mario Maker 2 offered more of the fun of the original, even if updates stopped earlier than one would hope. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is a perfectly good, solid, boring game, and Mario 35 was awesome until it disappeared. In terms of the letter grade, on merit alone, Mario on Switch would be looking at an A- or B+, probably leaning B+. There is one thing to consider though. I talked about 7 games. Of those, 1 is completely offline, and 1 has been delisted. At some point, Super Mario Maker 2 will have its servers shut down too. So of the 7 games I talked about, only 4 will truly stand the test of time. That really sucks. Maybe we all have to come to a point of acceptance that games in an online world simply can't live forever, but I'm not there yet. Especially with how egregious the cases of 35 and All-Stars are. For as bright as Wonder and Odyssey shine, that's a blight that drags down Mario's legacy on Switch. So Mario on Switch gets a B. thank you so much for watching. I'm very excited to look back on the overall Switch era. We'll be doing Pokemon next, so you can look forward to that. You can check out the previous retrospective video I did on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Had a good time doing that. And if you enjoyed this, check out the Patreon link in the description where you can support this, and hopefully I'll get to do it more often. That would be great. Thanks for watching.